Shelley Cruz. I am the Director of Education here. This year I have done several jobs since being in Green Springs. This is my 5th year here. I've been a lower elementary guide, and last year I was an upper elementary guide. And I'm back in this role, which I'm also really excited about. Bianca and I have also co-taught together, so we've done many things. This is my 30th year going into education, the majority of those in Montessori, but I also taught public school before. What else can I tell you? I have 3 grown children who are out in the world doing their thing. They were also all Montessori alums, so I really believe in it, love it, and all my own children went through it.
Yeah, and I'm Bianca. You all are going to get to know me really well. It's all Mulberry representation today. I have been at Green Spring, this is my 7th year, so going into my 7th year, and I started in toddlers and just slowly decided that I liked older children until I got to lower L, and then I found the perfect age, and I love it so much. I spent a little time with Shelley co-teaching, and that was magical. We had so much fun together. And then got to be in the Mulberry room by myself, and this is my 3rd year in there, and I just love it. I love them, they're amazing children, and I'm so excited to have your families be welcomed into the space. I have a daughter, her name is Forrest, and she is in the other elementary classroom, and she's going to be a 3rd grader this year. That's a little about me. I will click for you, but I have a very...
You're clicking for me, and I'll click for you. Usually we say, turn to someone that you do not co-parent with, but because we are such an intimate group, would you all like to briefly just introduce yourself, your child's name, their class, which we figured out, years at Green Spring, and something that you're looking forward to either for yourself or your children or your whole family this year? Don't mind who starts. Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Okay, so this is the agenda of what to expect for today. We always like you to kind of know what's coming. Not on here, and I'm going to tell you, is the whole team, the whole elementary team. It means the guides, their partners, some of enrichment, and we'll talk about enrichment, will be along at the end, so you will get to see and meet and talk to everybody. You just get Bianca and I for the first bit. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
And with that said, we always want to make sure that we're responding to what you want. So if there's anything you're sitting here thinking, I need to know this, you know protocol. Shout it out, we're going to write it down, and then we'll check in at the end and see if we've touched upon it. If we haven't, we'll do our best to do that, or find out the answers if we don't know them. So is there anything that we really need to say? And I will say with that said, back to school night, which will be just your class community and your guide, is the time for more the logistical, like car line and lunches, and that we won't really get into that detail here. This is more big picture elementary. But what are the things?
Do you have a question about homework, if there is any, and
We will touch upon that one, right?
and what expectations there are?
Yeah, that's definitely going to be good.
I have an elementary school kid now.
Yeah.
You're in elementary school now!
Sorry, it's real.
But we will definitely talk about that, yeah. Let's definitely have a slide about that.
We do.
Anything else? Okay, and if something, so we're a really small group, we want this to be interactive. So if we're saying something or not saying something, you have a question, please just shout out. We want this to be as interactive as possible.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bianca. Okay, so a little bit of history of Green Spring. I am fully aware that you can all read, so I'm not going to read the slides to you. A couple of things though I wanted to pull out. 1974. That was when our first elementary students came to Green Spring, which I think is really lovely to know. I was born then, you were probably all not, I'm guessing that I definitely was at that point. So that was when, and at that point we went, and then we moved to this campus where we are here in 1977. So our first elementary students came to this campus. That's always interesting to know. This one, what's interesting particularly for us, it's really, so middle school, which we now call AC, our first students were in 2005, so 20 years ago now. So that's kind of cool to know. And then this is where we began our big capital campaign, and that That led to the Student Activity Centre, which houses the gym, which is where you leave back to school night if you've ever been there. Music, art, Spanish, all those classrooms are over there. So you'll definitely see that. If you don't know where it is, you will see it back to school night. And then really, really exciting, it still feels really new, in 2022 is when Bianca and I got to move into the brand new Susquehanna Elementary building. So your children are only in the third full school year?
This will be the second year that we will be in there.
Third, no, because I was
School year, yes.
school year, yeah.
Yep.
So really new. So your children are going into these beautiful, beautiful classrooms, completely designed with elementary students in mind. So it's not repurposed, it's just lovely.
Mm-hmm.
So really, really special. And it's lovely now having the 2 lower and 1 elementary all together in one building, just as right for them, just as right for 6 to 12-year-olds in mind. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. Okay, the elementary child. This is what we're going to talk about. When we talk about Montessori as the elementary child, we're talking about 6 to 12-year-olds. So that's kind of, and most of you, all of you here have a 6-year-old. But we're going to talk 6 to 12-year-old because that's what we're entering now. That's that elementary age. Obviously, we know that every child is unique and beautiful and perfect, just as they are. And with that said, there are certain traits or characteristics that Dr. Montessori taught us elementary children share. So we're going to dive into those traits and characteristics. And of course, we know that they don't turn 6 and then suddenly become this new being. But start to think about your child and how you're beginning to see changes, or not, because if you haven't, you're probably going to relatively soon, because we're going to talk about that. They are very different to a 0 to 6-year-old. So we're going to hone in on that 6 to 12-year-old and talk about that. That's what I'm about to do. Okay, so this is a graphic from Dr. Montessori. She based this work on the work of Piaget, if you want a little bit educational background. These are called the planes of development. When your child was from 0 birth to 6 years old, they were in what we call the first plane. Some children, as they come into elementary, kind of have what I always call a foot in both planes. They still have definitely some characteristics of that child, that's fine, they're exactly where they're meant to be. And some characteristics of the second plane child. So first plane child is what Dr. Montessori called the absorbent mind. A lot of their learning is happening through their senses, and they're just like little sponges. They're absorbing their environment. It's not as conscious, their learning. Definitely from 0 to 3. 3 to 6 it becomes more conscious, but very tactile in all their senses. Then we enter the second plane, which is 6 to 12-year-olds. She called this childhood. This is what she called the period of the reasoning mind. Okay? If you think about a child under 6, a 3 to 6-year-old, if you think about them saying, I can do it. I can do it myself. That's all 3 to 6-year-old stuff. 6 to 12-year-old is saying, and they often don't say it, but they're showing is, I can think about it for myself. They want to figure out what they think. That is one of the reasons that we as elementary guides, lower and upper, will not share our own values or beliefs. They will ask. So election that we just went through was a classic. They will say, Miss Shilling, who did you vote for? And I will say, I'm not going to share who I voted for, but who would you have voted for? What do you know about the political system? So it's not a no, it's not a, I'm not talking about that. Let's talk about politics, let's talk about voting. But I don't share my beliefs. And the reason being, because they're all in this period of hero worship, it's not my job to tell them what to believe or what their values are. We role model values that we believe are important, inclusivity and kindness and looking after the environment, but we don't tell them what to believe because they're really trying to figure out what do I believe. It's mental independence, whereas this is more about physical and psychological independence. Does that make sense? I'm saying? So that's a lot of what you're going to start to see in the 6 to 12-year-old. You want to add anything? Jump in if there's things I'm not saying you want to say.
No?
Okay.
That's very inclusive.
Okay. Good? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about some of the characteristics of a 6 to 12-year-old. They are becoming physically stronger. Their bodies stretch, their limbs get long, they lose that kind of toddler roundedness, they become more angular. I don't have a better way. So their face is slim, they lose their baby teeth, they have gaps, probably going to visit an orthodontist at some point in these years. I think every single child I've ever had visits an orthodontist in these years. They get healthier, meaning those kind of, when I think back to my children when they were under 6, it was constant ear infections. That tends to, it's not gone, but it tends to disappear a lot in this time. They have a lot of stamina, they can really work hard physically, they can really work hard mentally. They are in it. Yeah. Okay, cognitively, their questions will begin to morph and change, and you might be experiencing this already. Lots of whys and lots of hows, and lots of justification for your decisions. They want to know why you are telling them to do that. Why do they have to do that? How are you going to figure like that? They're really changing. This is a period of a huge explosion of imagination, meaning they can now travel, put themselves literally in somebody else's shoes and travel through both time, back to the beginning of the universe, which we'll get into, forward in time, because they love to write imaginary stories about the future, and space. So we can start really talking about different cultures and different places, and we can get, and they love to talk about the ancient Egyptians. It's the first time you can really get into what we think of as talking about different cultures and what it was like in a different time. That's how they can, their imagination can blossom. And we use that for our cultural curriculum. Lots of critical thinking, which we encourage through lots of open-ended questioning and lots of phrases like, tell me more. Why do you think that? That's interesting. I wonder if. So lots and lots, because you want to really nourish that curiosity, which you said. You want to keep them thinking and finding their passions and wanting to know that more. And the passage to abstraction is really about that moving from hands-on, still very, very hands-on, but they actually like now to figure things out on pencil and paper. That's actually kind of fun and feels kind of grown up to them. I think I can do that without the materials, and you give them the opportunity, and then you might have to come back and say, I think this material might be just right. So the materials actually have less and less support scaffolded in until they move towards that full abstraction, which is what Montessorians mean by pencil and paper. You don't need a material to support the learning. They are very social. I don't know how else to say it. They are just so social. So that period of parallel play is pretty much gone. They're now playing together. And obviously the flip side of that is there's a lot more conflict. There is a lot of conflict. There is a lot of conflict, and I just cannot stress this enough, because every year both Bianca and I have experienced parents coming and saying, they've never argued with their friends before. Yeah, this is elementary. It is part of what they need to do. They're figuring out how to live in community. And they have strong opinions, and they're figuring out that their friends' opinions are different to theirs, and they're figuring out how to navigate all of that. It's the period of teams. They want to be in team sports. Some more than others, obviously. But they want to collaborate, so our classrooms are now set up. When you look in an elementary classroom, the tables are grouped together to encourage conversation and collaboration and teamwork. In a children's house classroom, it's far more individual. So we teach them in groups because they want to learn together. Whereas in a children's house room, you tend to give lessons individually. You now give small group lessons. That's what they want to do. They're hero worshipping, so a big part of what we do is set up the heroes, so we have books, and we have lessons about the people that we want them to learn more about. Clubs at recess. They literally create their own clubs all the time. We are the Sitting on the Log Club. I'm like, that's great. As long as anyone who wants to can join the Sitting on the Log Club, it can be a club. They just are drawn to each other all the time. What's your question?
I do have a question. It's actually about the moral compass and talking about how you have a lot more like hero books on the shelves more than anything. Again, about my daughter interested in research, a huge research that she's been delving into is World War II and like about wars and stuff like that. So we obviously know there's not all good guys in the world. Do we have books that enrich that and kind of I'm having a time right now. We're dealing with understanding how to say, like, you know, they had a bad moral compass, but I don't want to say bad technically, so I'm just trying to watch my wording all while going through this, because obviously in the last couple of years we've had some wars. developed, and so she thinks Hitler and like all of these things are like really big things. So I didn't know if you guys talked.
Well, I mean, they are really big things.
Yeah.
Let's be frank, they're really big things.
Yeah.
So you bring up a really good point. Every single year in elementary, a child in the class, lower and upper, will be aware of something going on in the world, and it can be a conflict or a natural disaster, or I remember I taught lower L through the riots at the Capitol, and I, myself, and my then co-guide in the other lower L class had a conversation like, should we bring it to them? And we made a decision that we would not bring it to them, but if they brought it to us, we would have to step in, and they brought it to us. So we came together and we had a conversation, and we talked about, there are people in the world, people have disagreements. Adults have disagreements. How should they handle it? So we took it from that angle. Like disputes and disagreements, and sometimes wars do happen. In human history, that is a thing. And then we go back to, what do we do when we have a disagreement? What should we do? What are the steps we should go through? And we kind of handle it that way.
Okay.
And sometimes, you have to say, that was horrendous, that was awful, that is not okay, that is not how we treat humans. Now, we are really careful in terms of the books. So would I have books about World War II in my lower L class? Not unless, I'm just going to be honest, someone in the class was researching that, and then that would be guided with a guide, because we've had that before in lower L.
Okay.
And we had to be really careful. And we gave them really clear modelling around what was okay to represent as part of their research, because this child, this was several years ago, he was third year, wanted to make swastika flags. And I said no. And then I spoke to the parents and said, this is why. A flag is okay, but what this flag represents is deeply hurtful to many people in the world, including people in our community. And I told him that. And I said, you know what, if you want to make a flag of Germany, that's okay. We can represent this, but we're not, and so it was actually really important learning, So it's difficult. Elementary is messy. Like, it is more messy. And it's probably one of the reasons I love it, and probably one of the reasons you love it. It is just more messy. They're just older and they're exploring the world, and they want to understand the world. They want to go beyond their classroom now, and they should. Does that help? It's messy.
Justice or
Yes.
sense of justice.
I mean, that's all about conflict resolution, which is tied to how social they are. So we step into conflict resolution daily. Daily, sometimes individually, because an actual conflict happens, you step in the moment. And please be rest assured we communicate with you constantly. If there's something we think you should know because it's going to come home and you should just know it, we tell you. And we step into it in a very explicit way in terms of lessons. We may have a whole group lesson. I've noticed that we're struggling at recess, so we might role play, we might talk it through, we might go back to our class agreements, which we all make with the children at the beginning of the year. So it's a never-ending constant, and sometimes it's very planned, and sometimes it happened, we've got to do it now.
Do we have peace tables like we do in children's class, or what is that conflict resolution looking like?
It's an elementary version of. Do you want to talk about it? Yeah.
Sure. It happens in various locations in the classroom. Sometimes there's a sort of peace object, so for speaking and sharing, and then sometimes that involves like a forum that you'd have a conversation in. A lot of that has to do with mindful conversation, and they get lessons on that. So instead of let's go to the peace table, it can happen anywhere in the room, but there is a conscious format for that type of conversation, and they know they're walking into like a conscious conversation when they're having a peace table conversation, which is what they do at children's house. Yeah. So there's definitely organization to it, and they know that it's not just a regular conversation. If that makes sense.
They're less inclined at this age. They feel it's very quickly. They will feel things that they did in children's house are babyish, and they don't want any part of it. So you have to respect that and move with them. They're like,
Yeah.
do not make me sit at the peace table. I did that when I was 4.
Yeah.
So you have to go with them, but we still have the same conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let me look at my notes quickly. Okay. Their work, they are still in the period, they're still self-constructing. You will have heard that from a 0 to 6-year-old. That continues, okay? But they're really thinking more now about their faults. Okay, so what they need, their big work are worthy challenges. I don't want to talk too much about worthy challenges because I know that's what Tamara is going to talk to you about at our back to school night, and we're going to touch upon it in our back to school nights. But they need big work, they need to be challenged, they need to feel it's meaningful, it needs to be important to them. So that's what our job is, to figure out what's important to them and to challenge them by putting other things in front of them and suggesting other things that this might be actually interesting too. And we have various ways that we seduce that. Oh, your friend Bianca over there is researching volcanoes. So we kind of seduce them in, we follow their passions and then try and push and change and find other ways in. Is there anything else I should say there? Goings out, yeah, I mean, we have a slide on the further on about this. They need to learn and experience beyond their classroom now. So Children's House, they may have moved around campus, but now they need to go out into the world. So a going out, and I'm going to do it really briefly, is different to a field. We do go on field trips. There are field trips, which are planned by the guide. So you're planning one now to the planetarium.
We have 3 plans.
Yeah.
We'll talk all about it.
And that's obviously teacher planned based on their plan and what the learner's going to be. A going out is child planned. So I can't tell you what the goings out are going to be, and I have no idea how many there'll be. Sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's 30. It really depends on what's going on in the classroom. It's child planned, it's based on an interest or a need to find information, a need in the classroom, like our axolotls run out of food, and I'm like, oh dear, what are we going to do about that? I am not going to go and solve that problem. But it's child planned. We also rely on parent chaperones to allow our goings out program to happen. So we have a whole training in September coming up, which we will talk far more about goings out. But the point is they need to learn beyond just the classroom walls now. So we actually encourage going out into the real world. Okay, so this is straight from Dr. Montessori. She tells us the 3 essential elements to what she called, I'm going to get her quote, exceptional learning, those are her words, were the guide, the environment, meaning the planned and prepared environment, both inside the classroom and your outdoor environment, and the child themselves. Those are the 3 elements that you need for exceptional learning. And we're going to dig into each one of those a little bit. Okay, so the prepared environment. I love this photo. So, as you can see, the prepared environment, just like in Children's House, you will have heard and seen this in Children's House classrooms, is planned and organised. Everything is sequential, everything has a purpose, everything moves from top to bottom, left to right in order of complexity, which supports that reading top to bottom, left to right. That continues, that's kind of a thread that runs throughout Montessori. But what's really key with the elementary child, and it's different to the Children's House child, a Children's House child in the first plane is typically very ordered. Obviously not every child is identical, but they like things a certain way. It's not that challenging to ask them, you have a spot for your lunch, please put your lunch in that spot, or your shoes always go here, or elementary, that is gone. This is the period, I'm going to tell you, of messy bedrooms. If it hasn't happened yet, it is likely to. I can vouch for that, having 3 of them simultaneously. So the external order really supports their waning internal order. They're meant to be less ordered. It's not a problem. That is because they're figuring everything out and they have so many ideas. So we as the guides know it's our responsibility to help them create this. We create it, we prepare it, and then the children are expected to return things to the correct place and put things away. And in Children's House, when you set that up and you never have to say it again, in elementary, you have to say it daily because they are thinking fast and making moves. And that's what they're meant to be like. But it's really important to have that external order to support them. Everything else really is very similar. Hands-on materials, that speaks for itself. Their independence keeps on growing. You know, we keep withdrawing as they become independent. It's freedom within a framework. And our job as guides is to both create the framework and to figure out how much freedom individually each child is successful with, and then to pull back as we can. And sometimes we pull back in again, and that's all how it goes. The role of the guide. There's Bianca. So many, many things. We are the preparer, meaning of ourselves. We have to do our own planning and our own preparation, meaning of the environment. That's our job, so that's what we've been doing all this week, preparing the environment. We observe. So that's very different to just scanning the room. When I taught traditional school, I spent a lot of time giving a lesson and scanning the room. We actually, this is a guide and then the child. The child's work is really, what you want is you want a child or children who are intrinsically motivated. They're curious, they want to learn, they want to figure it out. We do that in so many ways. We do that in the lessons we offer, the relationship we build. And we also do it by encouraging them and not praising them. And this again, if you've been through Children's House, you've probably heard this. We don't say good job. We say, I noticed how hard you worked. Wow, that was challenging and you kept going. So we encourage that effort. It's very, very, very process orientated. We set them up to have challenges. It's obviously very individualized education, so we figure out where's that just right spot where it's not, where it is challenging, you've got to work for it, but it's within your reach. So that's that. And then we teach self-reflection. We do it in very explicit ways where we actually support learning how to peer coach each other, and that's an ongoing thing. In writing, that might look like learning how to peer edit your friend's writing and learning how to accept peer editing from your friend, which sometimes can be harder than offering it. And then we model how we actually sit with them and confer, and how we reflect on their work, and we say, what do you think? How do you feel about your work? You know, before I tell them how I might feel, what are you thinking? How did that feel for you? So we encourage that constant self-reflection. Okay, this is our time for a break. So you're a small group. We can take a break, if you all need a break, or we can keep going. And our question was, thinking about all the things that we've shared already, do any of you see any interest changing? What types of questions are you hearing now? So tell us a little bit. And if you want a break, the restrooms are out there. Please, you can pause for 5 minutes.
Would anyone like to break?
Keep going. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Shall I take your? I'll take the question.
I just have a question about self-reflection. Are we, when you're talking about self-reflection, like, will they kind of come up to you about how they feel about their work, and then you reflect with them about how their reflection is? Like, I get another problem.
I can't give you a concrete answer because I'm going to say it depends on the child.
Mm-hmm.
It really does depend on the child. I have had children. So what you do get a lot of, especially with the younger ones coming in, is, I did this, do you like mine? And I will always,
What do you think about it?
yeah, we always turn it back to them, like, what do you think? How did that feel? So they get very used to that. And I've even had older ones, I'm sure you have, say, she won't tell you. She won't tell you. Because they get so used to going, how do you feel? Because I'm not going to, I don't want them to work for my praise. We're not going for that. We want them to work because it feels good. They are deeply passionate about their own learning. We want them to own it, really, really own it.
And sometimes there's scaffolding within that, so you might say something like, I noticed that you used a lot of lines in this section, but in here you used a lot of open color. But whatever it is, scaffolding their need, because some of them need steps to be able to self-reflect, and it's not something that's going to come intrinsically.
Because you guys are talking more about like art and stuff like that. I think more when we're talking about like writing, and they are reflecting on like their story they might have made or something like that. You know, if you're going off of that, it's not that you don't like the story or maybe something like that. Maybe it's the way that they're writing the story and their script and their, you know, phonetic.
So here's what we do.
Okay.
Well, I'll start with what we don't do. We don't crush their little hearts. We don't go, oh my lord, you had a lesson on punctuation last week and there's not a single period in that. We don't do that. But we might say something like, I'm making this up now. I'm so glad you shared it with me. Let's sit down. Do you remember that lesson we had last week? And they know where you're going. And they're like, what was that about? Periods. I'm like, oh, let's look together places in here where you know you may need a period. Then I would withdraw myself quietly away, the anchor knows I say I reverse out of the room, so to speak, and I let them, I see where they go. And it also depends on each child. Like, you kind of know which children need you there, you know which children, like, it's the connection before correction. Like, we connect with them, we learn them, and then we know. It's very individualized education. So there is accountability, is what I'm trying to say, and there is a responsibility on them.
Okay.
And we know when a child has put minimal effort into something that is more academic, they know that, and we know that. And it's good when they know we know that. Does that make sense? So I don't shame them, but I'm like, okay, tell me how you feel. And typically, most elementary children are pretty honest, and they'll go, probably wasn't my best work. I'm like, that was really great, thank you for sharing. Let's talk about that. And then, so there is accountability, but there isn't shaming. Does that kind of?
No, that's
And each child is a little individual, so you kind of, you know them really well. But after 3 years, you know them really well.
Great. Now we get to talk about the COSMIC curriculum. So, I would love if someone could read this. Would anyone like to do that? Thank you.
Sure. No matter what we touch, an atom or a cell, we cannot explain without knowledge of the wide universe. What better answer can we give to those seekers for knowledge? Maria Wells.
So this quote is demonstrating interconnectedness. So the connection that they have to everything, all beings, all elements, and looking at the picture, you can think about since the creation of the universe, and that's something that we're going to bring to them. And Maria Montessori called it the COSMIC curriculum, and that's something we're going to talk about. So within that, the way that we bring it to them in elementary is through all of the great lessons. So there are 5 great lessons in the Montessori curriculum, in the elementary curriculum, and the first one is the most exciting. It's within the first week they come into school, and it is the creation of the universe. So we do talk about the Big Bang, we talk about other things scientific based, but we also talk about creation stories. So they get to hear it all from all cultural spectrums across the world, all interpretations of the beginning of things. And then we move through that, and the second great lesson goes into the timeline of life. So how that created from just an explosion that they get to participate in, to the creation of all of life, and what that looked like over time, literally in a timeline. So they get to see it visually from the beginning of time and onward, and all the amazing creatures that go along with that. And this is one of their favorite lessons.
They love it.
They really love it. And so this is probably a period of each lesson. Each classroom does it a little differently, but they're usually spread out throughout the year. And that's the way that we've done it here, but it can be done differently in different schools. Sometimes schools will give them all in the beginning. We tend to spread them out so the knowledge can trickle down and the inspiration can trickle down. A lot of the times it leads to amazing research projects, and it's very exciting for them.
Every year you get the research on trilobites. I'm like, here we go! Someone loves trilobites in here!
Not really. And then we have the coming of humans. So the end of this timeline, they have an understanding of how they came into being. And this is really important for the context of the COSMIC curriculum in general, because the elementary student is wondering, the big question that they have is, what am I doing here? And usually what comes before that is, how did I get here? And we kind of answer that question in the beginning of the year, and then they're like, okay, so I have life, and the humans came, and then now that I'm here, what do I do with that? What am I doing within this classroom? What is my purpose? How do I contribute? And so from the time they're coming in to the time of going through upper elementary, they're continuing to see their unique gift and how that is contributing to their world, their classroom, their school, and then getting larger and larger, and hopefully just moving out with that idea through life. Yes.
Sorry,
You're fine.
about the creation of the universe and talking about the Big Bang and like how the other, countries and other people thought it happened, if I'm hearing correctly and reading correctly. Do you guys also talk about the creations of religions as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
we talk
During
about
that
it all.
time.
It's not a secular experience.
Yeah.
We have stories where we talk about different religions around the world, different experiences, different perspectives, scientific and non.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but we also talk about this is really important how science is constantly changing. And so just because I have this on this timeline, guess what? Since this was printed, let's look at the copyright date. 3 facts have changed, and I want to tell you what they are. People are still discovering things all of the time. And so that is one thing we also share with them on the scientific perspective as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Then we have the history of language, and after that, the history of math. Did you have a question?
We all do, yeah. I'm just curious about how, so because they're in lower elementary for several years, like, does it look different every year, or
Yes.
does it look the same every year, and they just hear it again? Like, what is that?
Sure, so skip a little forward.
Oh, sorry.
But we'll get to it here, Shelley. But just, because I'm excited to tell you about that.
Do you want me to go all next?
No, you can stay here for a second. In my classroom, how that looks is a differentiation of follow-up. And so that's what it usually looks like in most classrooms. So the stories are interpreted differently at different developmental stages. So in the first year, you might just see a bunch of cool animals, and you know that was a really, really long time ago, and then that was like closer to where you were born. Like that's what you're seeing. And then in your second year, you might start to know some of the names of the eras, and you might have a lot of detail and be able to do research on them. Then, in your third year, you might be writing several paragraphs about one of them. And maybe you get really excited about trilobites, because that is something that students love, and they go with that and they take it to a going out, and they go talk to an expert, or they get on the phone or on Zoom with an expert that can tell them about different fossils.
So that carries on in upper L as well. So they also receive these stories in fourth and fifth grade. So then they might. I had students last year when I was in the upper L class who they had heard this story 3 times in the lower L experience, so they wanted to tell it. I was like, great, you do it. They had to plan it, they had to write it, they had to figure out how they wanted to present it. So there was new learning there as well. So it kind of just keeps going. You don't get, and this always surprised me when I first trained, they don't go, oh God, not this again. They go, oh, yeah, this, because they love it. They love it. And it's something different every time.
It's also so much information, even for an adult mind.
Yeah.
I learn something new every single year. It's an incredible amount of content. They're sitting there for a couple of hours with one story, and sometimes we break them into the course of a week, and they're doing it an hour every morning, just one story, 45 minutes, depending on how long they can sit, hearing this, and they love it. It's one of their favorite parts of the entire curriculum.
All of our favourite parts. You love it.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing we often do as well, and I did this last year with Upper L, is we just finished this lesson, The Timeline of Life, which is basically evolution, is what you're teaching them. And you do use that word. Is then I pulled it into our lit circle groups. So we read a book, which is too much for lower L, but fourth, fifth, sixth graders can read it, called The Evolution of Calpurnia Tape, which is set in the 1890s. When Charles Darwin was publishing The Origin of Species, and they were like, whoa! And so you couldn't do that with lower L, they're too young, but it was a lovely, different way to pull something new out by learning the history of the person who discovered this and put this theory forward, and it was a whole other way. So it's really nice how you can do it differently with different children again. It's very cool.
Although that author writes a series for lower elementary called California.
Yes, so
and
that
we're
would be-
reading that this year.
So it keeps growing, we keep doing it in new ways. It's so lovely to just, it's lovely.
So,
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Really quick, sorry. You had, in the last slide, you had asked about like questions that would come up. Do you talk at all about prior to our current universe? I'm getting that a lot at home. Like, what was there before the Big Bang?
yes,
And you were so
we pose all sorts of questions, and I love to say I have no idea.
Yeah, that's
Where
really
could we find out more about this? Who can we talk to? And we look into it. Like, we don't let that go. We dig. And after that's the history of language and mathematics, which is similar in its exploration. This is all to help them put themselves in context of the world and find that interconnectedness with the world around them. Yes? Good. So we have an abundance of cultural studies. A lot of these are geography-based, cultural-based, science, as you can see in the picture. A little story that I have for you. One year we decided to maple tap because we have trees on campus. I was teaching the body functions of a tree, so the layers that you have, including the sapwood, how far to tap in, and it just brought about so much that I didn't realize was going to come out of it. We had measurement going on. We had, my favorite thing that came out of it was ethics and sustainability, about how to tap sustainably. There were all sorts of connections to the xylem and phloem, so the lesson that they were learning in the beginning in biology, and then ending up in cooking sciences. So when you boil sap, what fraction would we take it down to in order to get it to be edible? Like, what kind of, how long to boil? What temperature does it need to be boiled at? All these things that went beyond me, but we have so many people on campus that are knowledgeable about these things, so that when we get so deep, we reach outwards. And it's very interdisciplinary. I think we're good, Shelley. Yeah, so math. All of these things here are many different types of mathematical operations and bullet points that we will cover in lower elementary. As you can see in the photo, that's a colored bead box, 1 to 10, and they use those for a variety of different things. Multiplication is one of them. I think that's what she's working on in the picture. But we start with the material, we start with the concrete, and we make our way towards abstraction. At lower L, they're not going to reach abstraction, paper and pencil, but they start to explore it. Some of them are that place where they're saying, what Shelley said earlier, I want to do this without the material, and we let them, and when we use it as a support when they need it. Beyond these things, like I was saying with tapping, we take this outside of just the material in the lesson. We take math into all of the other subject areas as well. And it goes into music, it goes into measurement, as I said, and even the language curriculum. Yeah. Reading fluency. So we meet your child where they are. They come into lower L exactly as they are. It's the perfect place to be. And we meet them with the lessons that they need when they come in. We form lesson groups that are going to be suitable to the type of language lessons that they need. And they're going to learn writing and reading within the classroom, comprehension-based and reading lessons for the younger students and onward. They'll get writing workshop in the afternoon, so that's something that happens on a weekly basis. And that's something that's going to teach them the process of writing, like brainstorming and several drafting experiences, and not just, this is my piece of writing and here it is. It takes one piece of writing, takes 20 sessions of work, and it's a process, and it's an ongoing living, breathing experience. So they get a lot of that within the curriculum. Yeah. So I'm very excited about the tone bars in this picture, art and music. So touching on music first, we have tone bars in the elementary classrooms. For those of you who are familiar with Montessori, in the children's house there's a set of bells that are in the classroom, and there's one octave. And then Montessori and one of her colleagues worked together to create a new system that had 2 octaves, and these bars can be moved to discover different scales within the musical system. So you can create and discover scales on your own based upon spacing in the major scale, and then you can learn different scale systems. So they're fantastic, and they're a never-ending exploratory piece of instrument. And they can compose with them as well. We have them in the hallway in our classroom, and we all share the set, and then Upper L has their own set. Yep, and then art is integrated within everything that we do. All right, so
One of our favorite pictures.
So that's the favorite. These were Shelley and students and my students. Yes, and so you can see the tapping right there. They were just so happy to be doing that.
It was freezing cold that day as well.
It was
It was so cold,
incredibly cold. They worked so hard to get to that point, and this up to months of lessons in order to even drill into a tree. So they felt it was this huge culminating experience. So the science curriculum, all parts of the curriculum, but particularly science in this moment, is connected to the outdoors. We have our outdoor environment right outside of our classroom. We don't even call it our outdoor environment in our minds anymore. It's just an extension of the classroom. So outside of Susquehanna, all 3 classrooms have doors to the exterior, and children go in and out as they wish. They let us know, they put their names on a certain area. One of us might be in or out, depending. So if there's 2 of us, which there usually is, we're covering each area, and students can take materials out of that appropriate material to be outside. And that's a system that we check with. And so they just see it really as an extension of the space that they can work with. And they don't just take work out there, they interact with the environment. So we have gardens growing, we have projects happening, we have measurement going on.
They'll often just take their work out and they'll be like, my work outside.
So it's really connected to everything that we do.
And do you guys still do like meditation certified?
We do, you see us in the morning.
That's-
It's fun. So every morning, we alternate mornings now, but every other morning we go outside for meditation or a sit spot. So sometimes that involves quiet sitting, it's 5 minutes. Sometimes it involves nature journaling, so they're sketching or labeling something that they see. Sometimes it involves a focus, so we talk about something and they're supposed to observe that thing that they see. But we do that. Yeah.
They see it on the thing.
Yeah. So grace, courtesy, peace education is part of everything that we do, just like nature. It is part of all of the curriculum, but we do have particular lessons that we give. Mindfulness lessons are a part of the elementary, and I'm giving those this year to lower and upper elementary. So I'll go into the Red Bud classroom, and then we'll do it in the Mulberry classroom in our own time, and then in upper elm. Conflict resolution, again, we touched on it a little bit, but is a big part of our program, social and emotional health and wellness, and how to work out a conflict, as Shelley was talking about, all the conflicts with friends, how to respectfully disagree, how to listen and wait before responding, how to respond in a way that's calm, or to wait and come back to it when needed.
So we do a lot of labeling feelings, which is a continuation of what they do in Children's House.
Yeah.
And then,
Emotional vocabulary.
yes, we do a lot of that so they can talk pretty eloquently. I was thinking about how they feel and what they need from someone they may be having a disagreement with. We step right into it, and we do it a lot because this is the age. This is the age of conflict, so we just do it. They're learning, and we model it.
Yeah. So we have physical education classes. Those are happening on a weekly basis, so they get lots of movement. But of course, they're moving throughout the day, as we know Montessori kids do. We have the mindfulness that's up there again. We have a huge emphasis on diversity and inclusivity. And then we also have human sexuality curriculum. We use a curriculum called OWL, which is Our Whole Lives. And that's both for lower L and for upper L.
We do that every other year.
Yes, so this year we taught it last year, so this year we're not teaching that. So we'll have that the following year, and there'll be a lot of opportunities to answer questions about that. We have an information session about that. We'll know when it is, and we'll post it ahead of time, and you'll get an opportunity to put that in and ask any questions that you have.
Yeah. So it won't be this year. That's one that sometimes parents are like, oh, you're going to tell my 6-year-old about sex? And I'm like, yes, but at a completely developmentally appropriate level. And we do it every other year. So the meaning that every child will get it once or twice in the lower L, once or twice in the upper L, but not every year. Does that make sense? So we make sure that it works.
So just to sum up this page, we're trying to build a very healthy, inclusive environment where everyone feels welcome and really feels safe, because that is the basis of learning. You cannot learn academics if you are not feeling safe and regulated. So we start there and then we move on. Coming up, very excited. So the training, if you are interested in being a chaperone for girls,
Please be interested.
please come. is Wednesday, September 17th at 8:45 a.m.
And you will get that.
Yeah.
I've told you many, many times that that is for me. So if you'd like to spend some more time, which would be lovely, I would love to see you there.
Yeah, so September
We
17th.
rely on chaperones.
Yes.
We really consciously, we don't want us or any team members to take them out. We want them actually to, you will hear all about it with going out training if you come, but we want them actually to call someone who is probably not their own parent and not their own guide, and actually schedule a going out. Obviously you have to go through background checks, all of those things, and you as a parent have to give permission before your child to get in a car with us. So we do all of that, but we do rely on volunteers to help to with this program.
Are grandparents acceptable?
Yes, as long as they, yes, you have to pass a background check and show a clean driving license, and then yes.
Yeah, and something I like to point out, because some of our children in lower elementary enter really little, sometimes they're taking a booster seat with them, and they've approved the whole thing, they've planned the whole process, they know the directions. It's a huge opportunity for them to take responsibility and to show ownership of what they're learning. So it's really exciting.
Heather, ever go with the scouts?
Going out.
Going out, thank you. That it just happens during the school day, or can they be on the weekend or the evening?
Always
during the school day.
Always the school day,
Yeah.
always, always. We never do it at the weekends, it's never in the evenings, it always happens within the school day.
Do you have a
What,
question?
yeah, what time is the training?
The training is
On
the 17th at 8:45 a.m.
It's about an hour and a half, I think, if I remember right.
So I guess you came it with enough time to drop off and get a cup of coffee.
That's
before
what we
you
do,
come.
yes. And wait for an hour and a half. Yeah, it's lovely, it's a really great way to spend the morning.
It's in person too, correct?
Say it one more time. In person.
Yeah, it's in person.
Yes.
And how much notice typically do you have before a field trip?
Before going
A field
out.
trip or a going out, because they're different.
There are two different things.
Field trip is teacher directed, the whole class goes, we get on a bus, we go to a place. For that, 2 to 3 weeks at least.
At least, but this year we're going to try to let you know ahead of time what month the field trip will be in, and 2 to 3 weeks for the exact date, because sometimes things get moved, but we'll try for longer for a field trip. For going out,
It depends on the children will look at, here's what the children want to do. They want to ring you and say, can you take us tomorrow? Because they're so excited. And we have to have conversations about, it's possibly unlikely you might find it because they have a whole list of chaperones and they make the calls and they do all the things. Who is available tomorrow? So let's come up with, this is their learning, let's look at our calendar in school and suggest several days. And so they give you as much, and you can say no. Like, it's actually good, they have to understand that, that's part of their learning. So you get as much notice as you get, I can't tell you, because goings out is typically going to be 2 or 3 children. It's never one, because one child never goes on their own, that's a safety concern. And it's never more than 3, because we want them all in the back of the car wearing a seatbelt. So it will be 2 or 3 children, that's what a going out is. You will not be taking 20.
And also, for the field trips, our chaperones, are you able to, do you desire chaperones for field trips?
Yes, sometimes we do.
Depends on, yeah, depends.
So some of them are larger than others, and we need several chaperones, and we'll have the date ahead of time, and usually that's on a first come basis because a lot of people want to come.
Yeah.
And I wish everybody could come, but we try our best. So service and stewardship, we're really trying to step back into this. We've started in a beautiful way. I mean, ever since COVID, it's something that Queen Johnson now is coming back to life, and we're in it. Upper Elementary Art with a Heart in the city. And Jill, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was my class last year. We went to art. It was really, we do it because we want these children to give back, and we want them to understand what that feels like. The challenge is always finding organisations that aren't religiously affiliated, because we can't do that, and organisations that allow children as young as 6 in lower L and 9 in upper L, and that is really hard. So I do always say, if you know of anywhere, we want to know, because Art with a Heart we found would take us, it was lovely, we went there, yeah, so I'm always looking for places, but it is challenging with the age of our children.
Right.
But we're always looking for opportunities. And also we do things like, a child will come in and say, so I can remember about the earthquake in Turkey. They heard about that, they wanted to do something.
Yeah.
they decide they want to, they fundraise. So we also push into it that way. They might have a bake sale at school, they advertise it and we sell the funds. So we do it in other ways, but finding places that we can go is challenging for children.
And we also do stuff within our campus. So we have a very embedded composting program, and everyone is on board, and we love that. And that is something that we consider to be service. We have older students going to visit and read to younger students in Children's House. So some of your students might visit their siblings. And
We have
read to them.
lunches,
We have
do children's house
lunches.
lunches.
So we have a lot of that going on in the community as well. Yep. Right, so a little bit about the schedule. So I'll tell you, I'm not all detail because you'll get that on back to school night, but I'll give you a little bit. So in the morning, we have a morning meeting. Sometimes we do sit spots or a very silent reading time for 5 minutes. When everybody arrives at 8:10, we have our morning meeting, and then we have an uninterrupted work cycle. So a 3-hour period of work where they will be getting a lesson. And then during that time, before their lesson, they will have that work time where they get to schedule their day, they get to plan out what they need to work on, and they'll receive a lot of help with that executive functioning work, but they'll get to be in charge of what they're doing. And they have very structured supports around that. So there's no question, there's no anxiety really about what do I do. There's all the support that they need to be able to make a clear choice, and they are able to do that so beautifully. In the beginning of the year, we move that time a little longer and longer. We might have it at least slightly shorter in the first week or so. And then after, they have lunch, and we have recess, and then in the afternoon they have their enrichment time. And their enrichment time is for classes like PE, art, that we have mindfulness in the afternoons too, writer's workshop, and Spanish is in the afternoon. We also have, and music, we also have Spanish push-ins for lower elementary, so Spanish guys are coming into the classroom and teaching students in small lesson groups while other students are working and while I'm giving lessons or Kate's giving lessons as well. I see. So community meeting is something that we have once a week, and that's so we all can come together and talk out anything we need to. We solve problems, we make agreements, we talk about ideas, which is my favorite part. So we added that last year because there were so many conflicts and it was very conflict focused. And I said, well, what if we also talk about ideas? And all these beautiful ideas came up and these innovations happened. So that's what community meetings are for.
And they also will move between, what's lovely in elementary is someone in the mulberries might have an idea and then they come and survey the ginkgos and the redbuds. So there's a lot of cross work and they love that. So it's lovely when 2 little third years come in and surveyed my 4th, 5th and 6th graders last year. It was really lovely. So they survey on ideas. They're like, we think that we kind of let them...
For Spirit Week.
Figure out problems. They come up with problems and then we kind of hand back, what do you want to do about it? We also sometimes, at least in upper L, lower L too, we have to say, okay, we've been sitting here for 35 minutes talking about that the pencils aren't sharp, let's move on. Like we sometimes just cut it and we just let them know that is sometimes what you have to do. This is a community. So they kind of learn a lot about almost the democratic process, it feels like.
It is a democratic process.
Well, this is what it feels like.
I don't pull out the veto power very often.
Yeah, but sometimes I'm like, and we vote. Sometimes we vote, and we talk about what a ballot is and what a vote, and like we step into that.
And that's how the systems of the classroom are changed. And a lot of the systems that are integrated in each classroom are unique to that environment, to that culture within that classroom. And they'll talk about that too, how different each one of them are. And then they decide that they want to have an elementary level, and then they have to have a whole meeting together. And sometimes we do that too, all across the board. The last thing on here was conferencing. So we get together with students frequently to talk about their progress, how they're feeling about their work, self-reflection, and then we add questions for them and asking them what they think they can improve, but then showing them things that we notice in areas that maybe we think that we might have a challenge for them, and usually they get really excited. And these aren't times where we're deep in editing of their work and they feel self-conscious about it. It's a time that they love. They love conferencing with us, and it's something that they look forward to. It's the one-on-one time that they get with their guide.
And how often is that?
It's different for every classroom because the length of time that they're conferencing sometimes is extended, and then the frequency is extended. So you might have some guides might conference for a shorter period of time more frequently and some for longer. I like to have an in-depth conference with a student every single month, and then I have check-ins every week.
Okay.
And those are shorter. And we'll get to homework, but I'll talk about this again when we get there. All right, so the Montessori lesson. So in elementary, it's a lot different because we have lessons that are small groups. So a guide will come, it'll be a direct lesson, we'll invite students, maybe there's a group of 4 or 5, it's of different sizes, gathered around a rug, gathered around a table, and they're sometimes leveled, let's say if it's in language or math. They don't know that necessarily. Sometimes it's across 1st through 3rd grade because it's a cultural lesson, and they don't know that. They don't really tend to pay attention to that too much. They sometimes do it at older ages. And then sometimes they learn through others. So they're always welcome to observe. They observe other students working. They're curious about it, especially if it's something that they don't know how to use, a material work they've never done. And that works as a source of inspiration for them and something to look forward to, something to aspire to.
This is a lesson about work and water, so it's about river erosion. So you can see also it's still really hands-on. And then they also frequently, not always, but mainly have follow-up work. You know, sometimes that's very teacher-directed, I would like you to. And then sometimes it's like, here are some options, or how would you like to show me this? In upper L, and definitely, it begins probably at the end of lower L, we start literally giving them due dates because we're preparing them for what comes next. So they actually have to start writing down due dates. That definitely happens in upper L. Towards the end of upper L.
I incorporate due dates.
Yeah, so due dates, that's brand new to them. And then like they'll come to the next lesson and you'll ask to see their follow-up. Sometimes they don't have it, and that's a teachable moment, and sometimes they do. And that's how we do that.
The 3-period lesson on the Montessori piece for the presentation, which is the gift of information, where you're literally sitting there and giving the information on what it is that you want them to learn in a storytelling way or in an exciting way. The exploration and practice is when they're not with you. They're off and they're exploring the thing, figuring out how it works, whether it's a piece of math material or otherwise. Demonstration of mastery is going to be when they come back to you and they show you their follow-up. They could present it. That's what it could look like, their mastery. Or it could look like turning something in and they want to read it just to you. It really depends on the student. It also might look nothing like that at all. It might be you observing them while they're working and they don't even know that you're watching. And so a lot of the evaluation in Montessori looks different from other schools, but that's part of that piece.
Kind of what you were just saying.
Yeah, so the choice in showing mastery, whether they're literally presenting to the class, whether they turn in a piece of poetry, we notice, we record keep, and the record keeping isn't based upon a structured system that's uniform across the board. That is in the individual way that they choose to show their knowledge, and not every child is going to do that, so there's differentiation and follow-up. The self-reflection piece is how do you think you did? And how a lot of the times they're self-discovering how they can do better. Sometimes we ask them, sometimes we don't, and they usually take that on because they have a love of learning. Yeah. This is my favorite part. Forgot to bring my work journal. So systems are a big part of how this works. They have a work journal, and that's very new to a lower elementary. So they have a place where they can record what they have done for a lesson, what they want to do for a follow-up, and what they've done that day. And a lot of journals look differently depending on what class you're in, but they have a place where they're keeping themselves accountable and they know what they're going to do for the rest of the week. And when they forget, they have a place to look back.
So it's not usual. I mean,
Sometimes it depends on, it is when they get to AC, adolescent community. more like an actual journal. Bianca has some beautiful, and you'll see them at your back to school night,
Bring it up, open it.
like journals, which, so we scaffold. It's simpler at lower L, obviously. Handing them a year-long journal is way too much. You cannot give that to a 6-year-old and have any level of success. They will find a random page and draw a picture. You'll be like, okay, that did, so we don't do that. But by the time they get to AC, yes, it looks more like that. So we scaffold, basically.
Yeah, so it's on a weekly basis, usually in lower L, but some of them get really, really into doing this, and that becomes their thing, and they put 4 of them into a section of 1 month, and they create a book by themselves. Most of them just keep the week, and then they send it home.
So it just moves.
It really just depends. The meeting I spoke a lot about, that's the conferencing. And the social expectation speaks to comment 4. So we are holding ourselves accountable to that because we know we are part of a society that they are expected and should know certain things. And so we have that in mind and we incorporate that into all of our lessons, even though we do things differently.
Can we talk about this one?
Yeah,
So, homework. So I'm going to feel like I've done this. So the quick and easy answer is in lower L, you won't have homework how many of us probably experience homework. We do ask, and your guys will talk about reading. They should be reading every day to you or independently. That's a child by child. You will talk to us and we will talk to you about where your child is in reading, and that's a more specific conversation with your child's guys. So they should be reading and math facts. We ask you, and again, that looks different to every child. At the beginning, it tends to be, so we're working on our addition facts to 10. Now we've got them, we're working on our addition facts to 20. That pushes them into multiplication tables. But again, very individual. So we ask for that. In upper L, once they hit 5th grade, they have the option of being part of MMUN, which stands for Montessori Model United Nations. If your child chooses to do that, and it feels like a long way for all of you, there is homework. So that's the first time when there actually is. If they don't do some work at home, at that point, MMUN won't happen for them. It's just not. It's too academically rigorous and challenging. That's a long way from now, but that is a point where 5th and 6th grade you start to really, they actually, what happens is they know they have to do it, because they're like, I can't do it. I'm like, where are you going to do that work at home? So that is like a natural progression into it. Sometimes elementary children will get so into something they'll say, can I do some work at home? That does happen.
And recitation is a lot of that. So a lot of times they're giving a speech or they have a poem they want to read or they have a presentation that they are doing. It's very important to them. They always want to take that home. And we make a copy.
Yeah. Because, my dog gets it is a copy. Keyboarding is the other place. Once they start, they get a media lab, lesson once a week in the library. Miss Sherry, she will send you home your login and all the things, and then they can practice on the little keyboarding app that they use. So that happens. It doesn't happen right at the beginning, but you'll get that. Yeah, and then we talk to them about work at the home, like all the things you should be doing. How are you contributing to your family? Like, how does that look for you? So we talk about that.
Is that pressure washing?
So speaking of taking care of the home, is there anything that they do intended or that you plan for them to take care of the classroom?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So do we have jobs in here? Somewhere? Or maybe we skipped it a little bit. So they have jobs that they put them together themselves within the community meeting. They ask, usually I ask them, what do you think is needed? What do we need done in this classroom to be able to take care of it? And they come up with it themselves. It's usually a lot more than we can actually do. So we pick 1 or 2 per child per maybe 2 or 3 week period, and we rotate them.
So that's definitely something ongoing that happens year long.
Yeah.
I also love that they often call the jobs really fancy things. So you have like the zoologist who feeds the fish.
The zoologist is a very important.
I know it's important. I just love the names. They're like, what is the person called? And I'm like, I have no idea. So I just find that.
I like the transition person is my favorite in Mulberries because they do a job that I don't have to do, and I love it because they collect everyone, and I don't have to collect everyone. They listen to them much better.
So yeah, jobs, they rotate their jobs, and it's yeah.
talk to them in the classroom about like, we would like you to read at home? Or is this just you telling us and then we're the ones that say,
Gotcha.
we would like you to read?
No, I would say that depends often.
It depends. We can talk about it as a group. We don't always, but it's something that we could have an individual conversation about, or we can have a group conversation about why would you want to do something like this. Or usually if you normalize that people do it at all, which a lot of them do, it becomes something that they think about naturally. You don't have to ask them.
And that becomes a little bit of a partnership piece between home and school. So we kind of often rely on you telling us they really don't want to read. I'm like, great, thank you for telling me, I'll have a conversation, which isn't shaming, but it's like, I'm hearing that. Help me understand why, what's going on. Because sometimes it's simple as, I don't like the books. And I'm like, okay, so or the books aren't at the right level. So we kind of partner with you. So do I stand there and say, everyone needs to read for 20 minutes? Like, no. Some children just read. Some children don't. So I can't rely on you supporting and helping us and knowing when to step in and when to pull back. Does that make sense? But yeah, if there's math facts, and I know that's the thing, the child will know,
Okay.
and you will know. I will be having those conversations with both them and with you.
Okay, thank you.
Really, that helps me. I'm only going to briefly touch upon this because this feels like a long way away, I'm sure, but it comes. This is third plane, so 12 to 18-year-olds is that third plane. Dr. Montessori called that the humanist mind. You're going to see this. Last year I definitely saw it in my 5th grade, that's 100%. What they're doing is they're starting to push into what we would think of as social justice. They're deeply concerned about the world and the justice of the world and the fairness and the morality beyond their classroom and their individual conflicts with their friends and at recess, but they want to know why these things happen in the world. So AC, that's a hot, we don't really step into social justice in any formalised way in elementary, but it's a big part of what we do in middle school, which we call AC, adolescent community. That's kind of where you're going. And a lot of what we're doing is we give them the universe so they can figure out what it is for you. What is the thing for you because for some of them it's environmentalism, sometimes it's any number of things, but that's kind of where they head towards. So we just kind of give you that's where you're going. We love parental support, and we always love volunteers. So this, again, your guides will touch on back to school night, but we'd love to know what it is about your family that you could or would be willing to share with the community. Are there times, are there things you're passionate about? We'd love to bring you in. You'll hear a little bit about this, about back to school night, both in the gym where you start and then in the classroom, but we always really want to partner with you in every possible way. So it's just my little push for that one. And I'm about to, I know the guides are there, so they're about to come in. But do you have any, did I think touch upon that one? Are there any other questions, comments before we bring the whole team in and we get to the end?
Questions, last comments, I'm not sure what you're going to do. But it was about the creationism and evolution. And I guess I'm kind of thinking about it. We're a Christian family, and of course there are science things that overlap and things like that. I think I'm curious about, like, are we able to accommodate science-based perspectives that support religion as well?
Absolutely. A lot of them are intertwined, and we find similarities across the board. Actually, that's the purpose, which I think would be beautiful to speak to, a reminder for me in the future, to see that we're all very close and we're although we have a different perspective, we have a different path, what we're seeking out is something that is the same in different ways. So we definitely explore the similarities between each sort of avenue, whether it's scientific or religious, to find out. Did that answer your question?
I think so. I think when I heard story versus science, I was just thinking about how they're also intertwined with that. So, science is something that also supports like a lot of people's belief systems for us that way. So I was just wondering how that could be accommodated, whether it's like a child bringing their own perspective, because I would expect for you to be able to teach all perspectives.
Right,
at the same
because I'm
time.
not an expert in it, but I would love if someone is comfortable, if the child is comfortable to bring that to the classroom, we celebrate that. We want to know, we want them to be proud of who they are and to share their experiences, whether they're scientifically based, religious based, whatever they are. Yeah, we want them to share
We
who they
really
are.
stress tolerance. We try and really talk about how we all have these different beliefs, they're all different, and yet that our commonalities as humans are greater than our differences. And we really try and stress listening to someone who has a different belief system or belief pattern to yourself, and being able to listen and say, while I may not believe that myself, that is okay for both of us. You know, so we kind of try and stress the tolerance and the inclusivity and the diversity of that. Does that make sense? And we really pull upon the interconnectedness. So there's I can't remember the name of a really good book that has creation stories from many different cultures over many different times.
It's something like that.
And it has an eagle on the front, I can picture the book. Anyway, I'm sure I will find it somewhere, I will show it to you. But it has stories from many different cultures, through many different time periods, creation stories. And that's amazing. And sharing, you know, it has a Native American and Greek and Roman and Christian, and that's fascinating. And the children will say, wow, that one is the same as that one. And that's amazing when you get them there. And they go,
And then we sort of wonder how on different
why do
ends
all
of
these
the earth.
different people come to such a similar... So we stress that. Does that? And we don't share our own beliefs because of that hero worship thing. So we really don't share that. And we will consciously say, I'm not going to share with you what I believe because it's because as soon as we do that, we kind of are aware, whilst we don't think we're heroes, they can kind of hero worship their teacher, guide at this point, so it's not right for us to do that. So we keep ourselves out of it. Does that help answer that?
Yeah, any kind of changes in the adolescent community, but like
Yes.
the teacher, the
Yes.
guys share more about
100%, because they're in a different place. But 6 to 12-year-olds are not ready to. If I said, I believe this, they'd all go home and go, Miss Shelley said, so that's it. And I know that's not our job. That's not what we do. Does that make sense? When you're an adolescent guy, they'll say, Miss Shelley said that, so it's probably not right. They're very different. That's what teenage is. It's very different. Is that
Are we ready?
We're ready.
One question.
Alright.
Questions on 3 to 2 weeks on field trips. Is there any, understanding for the parents when going out are happening and like how frequent it's happening with their specific level?
Yeah, you have to sign a permission slip. Before your own child can go going out, you will get a permission slip at home. The child is responsible and they know if they don't get it back to us, you can't go on your going out. That's an accountability thing. So we don't say to you, oh, there's a permission slip coming. We're like, you have to get it. Like, that's a really important piece. So, yeah. Your child will not get a car unless you have signed a form saying it. Does that help? Okay, they know who we are. Can you tell them who you are and your classroom and those lovely things?
Absolutely. So I'm Tana Aguilar. This is my second year in the upper elementary. First year as the lead guide at upper elementary. But it's, I think, my 7th year overall at Green Springs. I've been coming and going a couple of times. I've had different roles. I was Spanish enrichment, I was in the lower L for a while. And yes, I'm really excited to get the year started.
I'm Holly Echevarria. I'm going to be in the upper L classroom with Tana. I came mid-year here to Green Spring this past school year, so this is my first start of a school year here. I'm really excited to be full. I was floating around before, studying for different classes, so really nice to be in one place. I'm really excited to be with these kids.
My name is Alice Kivel. I teach in the dual language programs, and one of those is the Red Bloods. So I'm there 4 times a week. And I'm starting my 5th year working here.
My name is Fernanda White. I'm in the Red Dot classroom. I'm the dual language partner, and it's my 3rd year there and working with Kate. So I'm really excited about this year.
I'm Kate Costa, and I'm the dual language guide in Lower Elementary. And I'm really glad that it smells like coffee in here.
Yeah.
name is Jessica. I work with Bianca in the Mulberry classroom. This will be my 3rd year in the Mulberry room, and I started out with toddlers, but I love working with big kids.
Hola, my name is Karen Mosqueira from Peru. This is my 7th year here. I was 4 years as an assistant in a dual language classroom with Miss Emily. Then I was a guy with a Winterberry classroom, and now I'm in the role of the Spanish enrichment guy. So I'm going to be working with all the non-dual language classrooms from children's house to AC. So I'm going to be working with mulberries and ginkgos. I'm excited for this year. I know some of familiar faces, and I know you children love Spanish, so we're going to continue the work and embrace the new ones. I'm sure they're going to be soon going home and singing some songs.